Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining me for our inaugural Public Safety Roundtable that we just held. Assemblyman Slater and I appreciate all of the various police chiefs, sheriffs, district attorneys, and PBA presidents that were able to join us today for a very thoughtful discussion with respect to public safety. What we have seen in recent years in New York State is a rapid rise in crime. Just last year, felonies in New York City rose to over 170,000 being reported last year, the highest level since 2006, and up 20.4% from 2021, when there were 143,000 complaints reported. We are dealing with a serious crisis, and it is spilling out into the suburbs. And here in the 17th Congressional District, we are fortunate to have some really phenomenal law enforcement departments. But they're dealing with significant challenges. From the disastrous cashless bail law, where over 40% of those released on non-monetary bail for felony offenses have been rearrested. To raise the age where 16 and 17-year-olds are using guns in the commission of a crime, and gangs are hiring them, they're being treated in family court rather than criminal court. To the defund the police movement, to the elimination of the anti-crime unit in New York City, whose primary responsibility was to get illegal guns off the streets, to the non-enforcement of petty crimes. My colleague Matt Slater and I have fought tirelessly against many of these changes because they are not making our communities more safe, and in fact are endangering our residents. And so in this discussion today, we really focused in on some of the challenges, yes, but how we move forward, how we deal with mental health, how we deal with the fentanyl crisis impacting our communities, how we deal with repeat offenders and recidivism, how we ensure that police officers have the training and support that they need to do their jobs effectively. And so Matt and I will be working collaboratively on legislation that we can introduce at both the state and federal level going forward to really address these challenges and focus in on how we keep our communities safe, how we support law enforcement to do their jobs effectively, and how we protect victims, not criminals. And so this is a challenge that we are focused on and that we are looking to tackle. And there is a lot that we can do in the coming months to really start to put together a comprehensive plan at the federal and state level to ensure that our law enforcement officers can do their jobs effectively and keep our communities safe. And so with that, I want to introduce my colleague in government, Assemblyman Matt Slater.
Well, it's great to be back in my hometown, where I served as town supervisor for 3 years. When I was here, we made significant investments in our law enforcement. I want to recognize our chief of police who's here, Robert Noble. And we made those investments because we recognized then, as we do now, that public safety needs to be made a priority. And that's not just my thought, that's a thought of 93% of New Yorkers who say that crime is the #1 issue that they want to see us tackle. And I've been in the state legislature for 6 weeks, and the fact that we have not brought this to the floor of the Assembly is a failure. A failure by Governor Hochul, a failure by my colleagues in both houses of the legislature. 93% of New Yorkers say that we are going in the wrong direction when it comes to public safety. Today, in partnership with Congressman Lawler, we did what Albany should have done from the start and give law enforcement a seat at the table. They are out there day in and day out. They are out there protecting our families, serving our communities, and we need to listen to their feedback about how we can get this out-of-control crime under control. We have a lot of work to do, but we've got great leadership here on the local level and on the federal level that I'm thrilled and honored to be able to partner with. Again, I want to thank Congressman Lawler and all of these fantastic individuals behind me for their leadership and partnership, and we will continue to make sure that we make public safety the high priority that it needs to be. Thank you very much. Congressman.
Thanks, Assemblyman. I'll ask Putnam County Sheriff Kevin McConville to say a few words.
Thank you, Congressman. Good morning. I want to take this opportunity to thank Congressman Lawler and Assemblyman Slater for providing us with the opportunity to sit down and have a frank and honest discussion about problems with the laws that have been enacted and the treatment of law enforcement personnel. It is ridiculous. It is dangerous. Law enforcement each and every day, regardless of their personal situation, goes out and protects the public. Government has two functions, public safety and public health. It's failing public safety. Law enforcement is unprotected by government. The removal of laws, the changes to the laws without our input, without our consent, without our discussion and ideas is dangerous to the public. And we see that, as Congressman said and Assemblyman Slater said, with the rising crime numbers. It's here now in Westchester. It's working its way to Putnam. And we are being thwarted by Albany at protecting and defending the good citizens and residents of our communities and counties. So I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the Congressman and the Assemblyman for listening to us. Simply listening to us, as they then proceed to take the next steps to enact changes to help us keep each and every one of you safer. So thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff. Now I'll ask Chief Bob Noble of the Yorktown Police Department and President of the Westchester County Police Chiefs Association to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman, Assemblyman Slater, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to try not to repeat what was already said, but when does common sense prevail? When are good people protected? Wealth status, that was the argument that was made for cashless bail. What about conduct? What about recidivist behavior? What about public safety? Everybody moves to these areas. Everybody wants to live in a safe area. And while we're here in Westchester, Putnam, and Rockland speaking of it today, it's good, decent people in underserved communities that bear the brunt of these laws every day that just make people unsafe. We're not saying the sky is falling. It's coming pretty close. These laws are a detriment to what used to be the great state of New York. Not so great. People are leaving. People are moving elsewhere. People are looking for that dream in other states. And it's because these laws, bail reform, discovery, raise the age, it handcuffs police from doing what they do. And that is to protect the good and decent people of society. When these criminals are brought into a courtroom, give the judges the discretion back to take recidivist behavior and core criminality into account. Wealth status, that's a ruse. We can't have that anymore. People's conduct have to matter. The work that we do in our communities, that police officers do day out, day in and day out, 24/7, to go help people, which at its core is what we do. You're usually calling us on your worst day, and we're trying to make that day better. We're a jack of all trades. At our core, your police officers, they're the backbones of their community. Help us help you. Change these laws and allow us to make that difference in our communities. Thank you to Assemblyman Slater and to Congressman Lawler, and to our town board locally here in Yorktown, Supervisor Diana Councilman Lachterman, who are here today. And thank you all for taking the time to care and to share our message. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to thank Supervisor Diana, Councilman Lachterman, Councilman Esposito for hosting us here today in Yorktown and helping us have this discussion. So with that, I'll take any questions.
I wanted to ask first Assemblyman Slater, you talked a lot about getting law enforcement to see the table, and that's been a concern with these laws been passed.
Yeah.
How much consultation has been done with local law enforcement? So what do you want to see happen in the Assembly? Like, what tangible things need to happen in your eyes?
I mean, first off, like I said, you need to listen. And if you ask any of these fine individuals behind me, whether they're an assistant DA, whether they're a police chief, or just a police officer, they never had any input in what was passed in Albany. And if you listen to them, they'll tell you straight up what needs to be fixed in order to make our community safe. The dangerousness for judges, judicial discretion, has to be accomplished, number one. If you look at the discovery laws, they're a complete disaster. If you look at some of the studies that have been done, there was a report released just last week that showed, I think it was just 30% of defenders, or of the defense, are actually going into the portal to use the documentation that's provided by the prosecution, which is taking them an insane amount of time, money, same with the police, and then raise the age. You know, you're seeing gangs that are recruiting younger people now because they know that the laws don't apply to them anymore under raise the age. So we hear these because we actually talk to the people on the street who are enforcing the laws, and if Albany actually had some common sense, they would do the same, and they would actually take their advice and pass the laws that need to be enacted to, again, address 93% of New Yorkers, from New York City to Buffalo to the Hudson Valley. They all say crime is the number one issue that we need to address. The fact that we haven't done it is a failure.
So would it be fair to say you would like to see Albany host some kind of roundtable to review these laws?
At the very least, but I mean, unfortunately, in a lot of ways, and these gentlemen can tell you themselves, you know, they've already missed that opportunity. And now we're behind the 8 ball. Because you've got crime, like the Congressman said. The statistics out of New York City itself, most felonies in 15 years. You can't say whoops to that. And so now we have to actually sit back down, I think, in a very collaborative manner with both sides of the aisle, but make sure law enforcement and district attorneys have a seat at the table so they can provide their firsthand feedback about what needs to be fixed. And they don't have a problem telling you, you just need leaders who are willing to listen. And that's what Congressman Lawler and myself, Supervisor Diana, that's what we did today.
And Congressman Lawler, so you talked about that you guys are going to be looking over and making a comprehensive plan and putting forth legislation. Federally, what does that look like?
Well, look, we're already acting at a federal level in terms of legislation that would deal with anti-recidivism measures. We're already acting with respect to protecting law enforcement from exposure to fentanyl, secondary exposure to fentanyl. But there's a bigger picture here. And as I said during the campaign, if the state of New York is failing to act in its responsibilities to protect its residents, then the federal government will intervene. And we have moved forward with legislation for grant funding for states that enact a dangerousness standard. New York State is the only state in the country that does not have a dangerousness standard. And so judges not only don't have discretion, but violent felons are being re-released back onto the street to commit more offenses. And New York State has failed miserably, as the chief said, and as the sheriff said, in its obligation to protect its citizens because of the laws that they are enacting. And so we will look at a number of measures, both at a federal level and a state level, to determine how we can better serve our residents, how we can better protect them, and how we can support law enforcement to do their jobs. But I don't think there's any question, when you look at these crime stats, when you look at what is happening across New York State, that cashless bail needs to be repealed, that a dangerous standard needs to be enacted, and that we need to ensure that law enforcement has the resources they need to do their job, from training to recruitment and retention levels, to dealing with discovery. You know, when you look at, for instance, body cams, I support the use of body cams. But the amount of resources it takes to store the data that is collected, the manpower it takes to review that in order to turn it over in discovery. Law enforcement is down in personnel. We need more personnel. We need more resources to support many of these laws that were enacted. And so it is a crisis at every level right now in the state of New York. And frankly, the governor should be embarrassed. She should be embarrassed by her lack of ability to do something about it. I met with her last week in Washington, all of my colleagues. We sat around the table. I raised cashless bail. She ignored it. It is a disgrace. And so all of us as elected officials have a responsibility to act and to listen to the men and women who are doing this job that they are expected to do. And that is what this meeting was about and how we move forward. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.